Cooler Master's SK series mechanical keyboards help you keep a low profile with ultra-flat double-shot keycaps and a slim minimalist design. Available in full-size trim as the SK650 or the even more portable 10-keyless SK630, these keyboards feel great thanks to genuine Cherry MX low-profile mechanical switches. They've also got a durable brushed aluminum top plate and a detachable and braided USB Type-C cable, so click the sponsor link in the description for more on the Cooler Master SK630 and SK650. What's up guys, how's it going, and welcome to my builds video for March 2019. This is a monthly series aimed at helping you guys pick out the appropriate parts to build a computer for yourself. I'm not going to be building the systems today, so if you are interested in me putting some systems together, check out my builds playlist, which is linked down in the video's description. Today I'm going to be going over parts lists, so if you have a vague idea of how much money you want to spend, but you don't know the exact parts that you should buy in order to put a system together, well, that's what this video is all about. Also, if you missed it last month or just in the past few weeks, I did a refreshed How to Build a PC video series for beginners. It's a 3-part series, so feel free to check that out as well if you're looking to get started in building a computer, especially if you're building a gaming PC. These builds are based on your feedback from last month, so also check the description for a straw poll link. These were your responses for March, so we're going to do balanced builds around this GTX 1660 Ti today. I also had a bunch of other options on there, so for next month, if you want to vote on April, check the video's description for this straw poll, and I took a bunch of the sort of mid-range responses, the responses that weren't at the top but not at the bottom, and refreshed them for this month, and I added 1 or 2 more, so feel free to vote on those. Let's get started though with this month's first build, which is about an $810 gaming PC, and once again these first 2 builds are all based around the 1660 Ti. Just recently launched from NVIDIA, which costs about $280 if you get the entry-level one, which is a very good price relative to the prices that NVIDIA has been launching over the past 6 months for their new stuff. So you can finally get a Turing GPU for $280. It's a good price to performance for this card. So I've decided to integrate this into an AMD build and an Intel build. The AMD build is actually very, very similar to the build I did last month, just with a few parts swapped out here and there, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. I'm still basing this on the Ryzen 5 2600 because I just think it's still the best bang for your buck. 6 cores and 12 threads, unlocked for overclocking, $165. I've paired that up with the Hyper 212 Black Edition because it's on a crazy deal for $22 on Newegg. Several of the parts in this build are reliant on mail-in rebates, so bear that in mind. Newegg has several going on right now for a total savings of about $55. But other than that, we've got the ever popular MSI B450 Tomahawk motherboard, a 16 gig memory kit for $80. Oh, that's fabulous. A $53 480 gig SSD, the 1660 Ti of course, and then a case and power supply coming in for about $100 for the pair. So here's the Ryzen 5 2600, and as an all-around CPU, I think you can't get better than this right now. It's $165 on Newegg. You get Tom Clancy's The Division 2 game as well, which, you know, that's not bad. It does come with a relatively small cooler though. This is the Wraith Stealth rather than the Wraith Spire. So for that reason, I've paired it up with this cooler, the Hyper 212 Black Edition, which combines the price to performance of the Hyper 212 with some good aesthetic features because it's all black. Add a $10 mail-in rebate card at Newegg, you can get it for $22, and it's just going to be a great cooler for you, and it's going to perform much better than that Wraith Stealth, which will allow you to overclock if you want, or just allow the processor itself to run at a higher frequency because the 2600 has what's called XFR, or extended frequency range, from AMD, so it'll automatically overclock itself a little bit if you give it the thermal headroom. The motherboard, again, is the B450 Tomahawk. I've used this with a few different builds now. For about $100, or a little over $100, we're just looking for basic functionality. So we want 4 memory slots, so we have memory expansion capabilities. We want at least 1 M.2 slot, which it also has. And then this board also has pretty good power delivery for a little over $100 motherboard. So it's going to be able to support some overclocks if you want to go that route, or support the higher end CPUs on this platform, like the 8-core and 16-thread options that are available. If I have a complaint about the MSI Arsenal Tomahawk, it's that the price has gone up. It used to be about $105. Now it's more like $110 to $120, depending where you look. I think it's due to the popularity that the price has crept up a little bit, but still a good board. Next up is memory, and I'm just using the PC part picker filter here to show you guys how I have been searching for memory. Basically, especially for Ryzen, I'm looking at 3000, 3200. You know, I'll include speeds up to maybe 3600 just to see if there's any good deals on faster speeds. And then we just want a 16 gig kit, 2 by 8 gigs, and then we just want to sort by price. You can also sort by price per gigabyte, but it should be about the same. And here we can see direct evidence of memory prices coming down in Q1, which is absolutely awesome. So $80 for this G.Skill Aegis kit that does work with Ryzen processors is just a screaming deal. You could spend a few more dollars here and look for a kit that's maybe 3200 speed or something like that, but you're gonna have to spend $20 plus more to jump up to that level. So that's why I stuck with this DDR4 3000 speed kit. Again, it's low profile, it's Aegis, it doesn't have much in the way of heat sinks, but it will get the job done, and again, it works with Ryzen. For storage, we have a 500 gig class SSD. That means 480 to 512 gigs as far as the capacity goes, and you should be able to find that for around $50. This is an ADATA SU655 for $53. We're gonna go with that and move on. For our graphics card, we actually have a bunch of options down here for the 1660 Ti. This is another example of why I think this card is pretty viable for people, is you can actually buy it for the stated price that Nvidia said they would sell it for, even $5 less. We've got this EVGA XC black version. I actually went with the Zotac 1660 Ti gaming video card simply because it's got a little bit larger cooler. It's got a dual fan cooling solution on there. Honestly, most of these 1660 Ti's are going to perform within a percentage point or two of each other, so don't worry too much about that. Just keep an eye out for deals, because these have been going on sale for $5, $10, or $20 off. For a case, we have the Corsair Carbide Spec 06 ATX, and this one usually goes for $75 or $80, but Newegg again has a deal right now, $20 rebate card, so you can get it for $55. The original Spec 05 version of this case I wasn't a huge fan of aesthetically, but this case has received a lot of positive feedback just for being a good functional case. It has 220mm fans included, so you got your airflow. It's got a power supply basement at the bottom, nice painted interior, and a good layout for installing your hardware, especially at the back here when it comes to cable management and support for mounting some 2.5-inch SSDs. Rounding things out with a power supply, when you're looking for a power supply, you're going to want 550 watt to 650 watt for a standard gaming PC, and you just want to look for these basic things. Having a brand that you recognize, Corsair, Seasonic, EVGA are all good options. Having all black cabling like this CX550 is also a good choice. And then I recommend 80 plus bronze rated at least. If you can find 80 plus gold rated, then that is going to be a little bit better. But this one also has a $15 mail-in rebate, taking it from about $54 down to about $39. So that is how we are getting this entire system in at a price of just over $800, $808.82 according to PC Part Picker. And if you compare that to last month's $900 build, most of the savings are coming from about an $80 savings with the graphics card, going from an RTX 2060 to the GTX 1660 Ti, and then there's another $20 in savings or so from the memory, also coming down in price. But I think this would be a very solid performer. But what if you were like, Paul, why don't you ever do an Intel build at this price? Well, I have done that, and that is my second build, which is also an $800 build. Actually comes in a few bucks cheaper at $800.82, and all I've done with this build is swapped out the CPU and the motherboard, because everything else can stay exactly the same. It's a standard size ATX build. We can use the same power supply, case, graphics card, storage, memory. We just need an updated motherboard to support the Intel socket LGA 1151, and we can even keep the same cooler with the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black. So for this build, I'm just going to concentrate on what is different. And first off, what is available when it comes to trying to find a CPU on the Intel side that competes with that $165 2600. So all I'm looking at here are Intel LGA 1151 CPUs that are between $151 and $218 here. And note the core count listing right here. We have 2 cores, we have 4 cores, 6 cores with the i5-9400F, and the cheapest you can get that is $175. This is the CPU that I chose, but I'm going to come back to it in just a second. If we keep going down the list, we see dual cores, quad cores. There's another 6 core in the i5-8400, but that's about $25 more than the 9400F. So I increased the top end price here just to see what we would need to pay in order to get a 6 core unlocked for overclocking CPU from Intel, and for that we'd have to go up to the 8600K, which costs $260, and that's about $95 more than you would pay for the R5 2600. And when you just pay for 6 cores on the Intel side, you also are not getting an unlocked processor. So here's the 9400F. The F on the end means it doesn't have integrated graphics. So that kind of sucks, but since we are adding a graphics card to this build with the 1616 Ti, we don't need those integrated graphics, and because of that, Intel feels okay selling it for the price of $175. This CPU will run at a max turbo frequency of 4.1 gigahertz. According to some of the comments I've read about it, it's going to run at about 3.9 or 4 gigahertz on all cores when it's actually under load, and it's only got a 65 watt TDP, so you're not going to have any issue running this processor at its rated speeds, even with a less expensive motherboard. And I suppose the silver lining to this CPU being locked and not able to be overclocked is that you don't have to spend the money on an unlocked for overclocking motherboard. So for that reason, we got the ASRock B365 Pro 4 here, available for about $90 to $100. And again, this motherboard is going to have all those basic features that you want when it comes to memory slots and expandability. Not a high-end motherboard, but it does have two M.2 slots, and that will allow you to put this entire system together for the low price of around $800. But it's not unlocked for overclocking. You cannot add an unlocked for overclocking CPU to this system and then overclock it because of the motherboard that you're stuck with. So when it comes to an upgrade path for the CPU in this build, you'd be pretty limited. You'd basically want to stick with existing locked CPUs from Intel that would offer more cores or more threads, and there's not a whole lot of those. Maybe like an 8700, which gives you 6 cores and 12 threads. Beyond that, you have like a 9700K and a 9900K, but those are much more expensive CPUs, and they're unlocked for overclocking, which wouldn't be a sensible pairing for the motherboard that you buy for this system. So again, that upgrade path magic that you get on the AMD side doesn't exist here. That isn't to say this system shouldn't be built. It's just for somebody who isn't interested in overclocking, isn't interested in upgrading their CPU down the line, and you'd probably be more focused on just the single core performance of the CPU, which means you're probably focused on gaming strictly. I have one more build to run down for you guys. This is a $2,000 system. It is a Mini-ITX PC. It is, again, Intel based, so for anyone who's like, Paul, what would you recommend for an Intel system? This right here, but it's a bit more of a niche system, a bit more specialized, and so for that reason we have a total price of about $1,935, and the core components here are going to be the i7 8700K for the CPU, as well as the RTX 2070 for the GPU, and then of course the case that I'm building in, which is right here, the Sentry 2.0 from Dr. Zaber, which is a new case, which is launching later in March. They sent me this engineering sample to do a build with, so that's what I'm going to do, although this case is on the more expensive side. They're listing a MSRP of 230 euros for this, which is about $250 US, but it is one of the smallest cases that you can build in, and I'm kind of interested to see what changes they've made from the Sentry 1.0 to the 2.0. 1.0 was originally a Kickstarter, and they've done a bunch of cool stuff to upgrade the second version based on a lot of feedback they've gotten from people like you guys in the first version. So let's run down the parts here. We've got the i7 8700K, in my opinion right now, the best bang for your buck when you're looking at Intel side, because it's unlocked, you get 6 cores and 12 threads. It's less money than the 9700K, and you get more threads, and basically when it comes to per core performance, if you're running this at the same frequency that you're running a 9700K at, it's going to be the same gaming performance. Intel unlocked CPUs do not come with a cooler, and I wanted 120mm all-in-one to fit in this case, because the case supports 120mm all-in-one liquid cooler for your CPU, as long as you use a shorter graphics card. So I have the Corsair H60 here, which I sure hope fits. The main requirements here are we need a reasonably slim radiator for the 120mm cooler, and then just a single fan is going to go on top of that. So I'm pretty confident this will fit in the case. For a motherboard, we've got the Asus ROG Strix Z390-i Gaming Mini-ITX motherboard, which I happen to have, which was a part of the reason I chose it. It's also a high-end Z390 motherboard that can actually overclock, even though it's still Mini-ITX. It's got a nice assortment of I/O in the back, including integrated Wi-Fi and a fixed I/O shield. It is on the pricier side, though, coming in at around $190 to $200. So yes, you could get a lot more performance building a full-size ATX system and not being saddled with as many of the requirements I am with this case. I'm just going to point that out because I'm sure people will mention it in the comments anyway. For memory, I've just got a Corsair Vengeance LPX kit, 3200 speed, so it's going to be fast and it's low profile, and there's no side panel viewing window in this system or anything, so all black is just fine. I had an interesting experience when it came to choosing an SSD. My initial plan was to go with about a 1TB M.2 NVMe SSD for the main operating system and everything, and then for a secondary drive I was just going to find a SATA SSD like this, a 2TB 2.5-inch drive, That would give you a 1 terabyte NVMe for your operating system and a lot of stuff, and then 2 more terabytes of SSD storage, giving you 3 terabytes total. And then I went on PC Part Picker and I went and looked at SSDs and the capacities between 1 and 2 terabytes and sorted by price per gigabyte. And guess what appears at the top? The Intel 660p series, both the 2 terabyte and the 1 terabyte. In fact, the 2 terabyte Intel 660p right now is the best price per gigabyte, actually 11 cents per gigabyte. That's beating out a lot of SATA SSDs. And when it comes to the Intel 660p, which this isn't the 660p, I just wanted to hold something in my hand, it will sometimes get some criticism because it uses QLC memory, which is 4 bits per cell when it comes to the actual NAND flash that's on the drive. That can affect its write speed. So if you're doing a long, sustained writes to the drive, it can slow down. However, it's still much faster than any standard SATA drive. So as a result, my storage configuration for this build is a 1 terabyte Intel 660p and a 2 terabyte Intel 660p. And fortunately, my motherboard has 2 M.2 slots. It's got one on the front and one on the back, so I can use both of them at the same time. And I just think that's so funny. Like, I spent extra time on this thinking like, no, like, is that really practical? And yeah, for the price right now, it is the most practical. And the 660p makes a great operating system drive because response speed and read speeds are still really good on it. Real quick, here's a look at the Dr. Zaber website, which I just think is funny because they're like, hey, we have these massive industrial machines that we make, or, you know, we do some work with wind turbines, or we've got this little Mini-ITX PC, which I just think is awesome. But you can find a link in the description if you want to check out the actual product page for this. They have manuals for the earlier version and a newer version. You can also subscribe if you want to get an email when the Sentry 2.0 will be available. If you've got the Scratch, it is on the more expensive side, but very, very compact. It's like a 7-liter size. They've maintained the same size from the Sentry 1.0, but when it comes to the internal layout, you'll find with a 7-liter case, you know, things can get a little cramped in there. So we're going to do an SFX power supply and 120 millimeter liquid cooler that goes down there, which means our graphics card needs to be 170 millimeters. Now, I'm not 100% sure right now when it comes to the PCI Express power plugs if we're going to have compatibility on this, because Dr. Zaber currently isn't listing compatibility for RTX cards. They have a bunch of compatibility listed for the 10 series as well as existing AMD cards. But this is one of those cases where, especially if you're putting a all-in-one liquid cooler radiator down here, the length of the card very much does matter. So for that reason, I wanted the highest end graphics card that could fit in there. I was looking for Mini-ITX RTX 2080s. Those don't seem to exist at this time. Maybe they will in the future, in which case I would totally swap out for one of those. But for $500, you can get the Gigabyte GeForce RTX 2070, which is super small, 170 millimeters in length, actually 169.9 is what they list. So obviously this card isn't going to stay as cool as some of the bigger RTX 2070s with more massive coolers, but you're not going to be able to fit those in a case that is as small as the Sentry 2.0. Rounding things out, we need a SFX power supply. The Corsair SF600 is a great one because it's fully modular. It's all black, so it's going to blend in nicely aesthetics-wise. And then, of course, it's got all black modular cables too, so another product that I've used before that I'm very confident will work just fine in this build. So I'm going to be building this system later this month. Let me know in the comment section if you have any feedback on that or suggestions for me, and also let me know what you think of the builds I've put together for this month. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching my March 2019 builds video. Links to the parts lists on PC Part Picker as well as all the individual parts are also down in the description, so check that out. Hit the thumbs up button on the way out if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys next time.